Good evening. I'm Kalamazoo Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, and welcome to tonight's Kalamazoo City Commission meeting. Today is Monday, December 20th, 2021, and tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the City of Kalamazoo's Facebook page as well as the city's YouTube channel. You can listen to tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-552-6425 and entering meeting ID number 810-9887-4694 when prompted. And you can also call and leave a public comment for tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-226-6573. And we'll get the meeting started with Mayor David Anderson.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain. I want to officially call this last business meeting of 2021 for December 20th to order, and presumably the last Zoom meeting we will have for a while. DCM Chamberlain, I think we've been doing this kickoff together for about 22 months now. Is that right? Something like that. It's kind of bittersweet. You know, we've gotten to know each other in this way, and it will be no more. So I appreciate all the work that you've done keeping these meetings going from your end there and managing the public comment. And I know you've got a whole team behind the curtain that's helping also, but I think you've been the Don Pardo, is that right, of city commission meetings. So I really, really appreciate that, all the effort, all the help, and it's made it really go smoothly. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
So now that the meeting is officially called to order, our good clerk, Scott Borley, needs to call a roll.
Commissioner Decker.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Hess.
Also present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Pradle.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Mayor Anderson.
Here in the city of Kalamazoo. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Juarez?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Pradle. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And just a request there, I know he was just in on our committee of the whole meeting a few moments ago. Is somebody reaching out to see if he's having any connection problems or anything?
I did reach out to him to see. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Decker. I appreciate it. All right, so the motion passes for now, at least. Commissioner Juarez is excused. So we are beginning our opening ceremony. We have invocation, as we often do, to start out, and we are honored tonight to have Michelle Scheid from the Fetzer Institute to provide us with our invocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to all of you for inviting me to be with you again this evening. It's an honor to be here as we gather during this holiday season that is a meaningful time for many of us. As we begin this meeting, let us take a quiet moment to open our hearts, to open our minds, and to ask for guidance as we begin with a moment of silence. During this holiday season, we call to mind and to heart all who are in need in our city and our world. We remember those who are alone during the holidays, those who are suffering from COVID, those who have lost loved ones. We hold in our hearts and minds all who are in need, those who are outside in the cold weather, and those who do not have sufficient food to feed their families at the holidays and throughout the year. And we remember that we are all suffering from the evils of division and racism in our society. We ask that our work tonight and all the work we do may be for the greater good of the beloved community. We also pause to give thanks, especially during this holiday time. We give thanks for our government, for our city leaders, our first responders, medical personnel, those helping the people who don't have homes, and all public servants who are working for the good of others. Tomorrow, we observe the solstice, which is the shortest daylight of the year, reminding us that we must be light in our world. This coming weekend, of course, we observe Christmas, and next week, the New Year. And we may feel the connection and joy of celebrating and holding some of these secular and religious holidays in common. But we also remember that this is a time of difficulty and sadness for many people. And more than ever this year, we ask for peace, unity, hope, and light in our city and our world. For tonight's meeting, we ask for guidance and wisdom in working on the budget, to speak and listen compassionately, to be grateful for the abundant gifts we have, and to use the resources we have for the greater good, as together we yearn for a community that is just and equitable. We ask for strength and wisdom to do what is right, as together during this holiday season, we seek to build the beloved community in Kalamazoo. My thanks to each of you, and I extend my best wishes for you during this holiday season, and I thank you for the good work you are doing on all our behalf.
Thank you so much for taking time to spend a few moments with us and not giving us just a good way to start this meeting and end this year, but think about this next year after New Year's as we go forward. So thank you very, very much. We have, talking about recognizing being light in the darkness, we have 3 proclamations this evening. And we've got first 2 are double header, being led by Vice Mayor Cooney. Our first proclamation is a celebration of the Family Health Center's 50th anniversary. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. It is quite an honor to be reading this in the presence of the CEO, Denise Crawford, right here, who has done such a wonderful job there. Whereas Family Health Center has provided patient-centered quality care to the residents of Kalamazoo since 1971. For more than 50 years, patients have turned to Family Health Center to be heard, understood, and treated by compassionate providers who treat the whole person. And whereas Family Health Center provides family medical care, dental, behavioral medicine, physical and occupational therapy, and pharmacy services to more than 50,000 patients annually who call FHC their medical home. And whereas what started in a small trailer on the same property where the Moses L. Walker building currently stands on the north side of Kalamazoo today, houses more than 50 providers with clinics in the north side and Edison neighborhoods, as well as mobile dental and medical units that partner with school systems and community organizations to provide care throughout the community. And whereas Family Health Center is proud of their annual Back to School Bash, where they provide a day of carnival rides, food, and backpacks full of school supplies for more than 1,000 local kids who complete their well child exams and complete the necessary vaccinations to start the school year without missing a day of instruction. And whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, Family Health Center was one of the first to begin testing and took this essential service community-wide to all neighborhoods. Family Health Center conducted more than 25 drive-through community testing events and administered more than 16,000 COVID-19 tests. And whereas Family Health Center also used resources to mobilize 100 community COVID-19 vaccine clinics throughout the county, administering more than 15,000 vaccines to Kalamazoo residents. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 54th City Commission, I, Commissioner Vice Mayor Don Cooney, on behalf of the David F. Anderson, the mayor of the city of Kalamazoo, do hereby honor and recognize the Family Health Center on this special milestone and encourage our community to join us in celebrating 50 years of serving the health needs of our community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and Dr. Cooney, which you will always be to me, as well as the mayor and commissioners. On behalf of the entire 312 staff here at Family Health Center, we are so honored. This couldn't come at a better time. And we just really want to thank you for your acknowledgement, but also your support. None of that could have happened without the support of the entire county and each and every one of you in the various administrative offices. And so again, we are very proud to be in this community. Kalamazoo County is our county, and we hope to be here for 50 more years. So again, thank you, and so appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here this evening. Vice Mayor Cooney.
So this is a proclamation commemorating Mr. Robert S. Harper. Whereas Mr. Harper was born on July the 16th, 1936, as the firstborn to Robert Sr. and Nellie Harper in Detroit, Michigan. And whereas in his youth, Robert was a student at Detroit Public Schools and pursued higher education at Highland Park Community College, later transferring to Howard University in Washington, D.C., it was at this time Robert found his passion in the funeral profession and began his studies at Eccles College of Mortuary Science in Pennsylvania. And whereas after passing the Michigan exam, Robert began his apprenticeship at the House of Diggs, becoming one of the youngest licensed funeral directors to work with their business. To pursue his dream of business ownership, Robert relocated his family to Kalamazoo, Michigan in 1969. And whereas in his time in Kalamazoo, Robert became heavily involved in the community as one of the key organizers of a new businessman's club called the Progressive Minority Association. He was also a member of various fraternal organizations. And whereas Robert was also recognized for his excellence and accomplishments as he received numerous awards from the Black Police Officers Association, the Minority Business Alliance of Southwest Michigan, and the Michigan Funeral Directors Association. And whereas Robert will be fondly remembered by his wife of 59 years, Marilyn, their 3 children, many grandchildren, and all those who knew him. Now, therefore, I, Don Cooney, Vice Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, on behalf of the 54th City Commission and Mayor David F. Anderson, do hereby urge all Kalamazoo residents to join me in remembering Robert S. Harper for the legacy he has left behind and for the wonderful person he was.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Cooney. I don't believe anybody is here from the Harper family this evening, but I was able to attend the service on Saturday, which was over at Stone's Church, and another one of the knock it out of the park kind of eulogies provided by Dr. Pastor Lewis Felton, who drove up to town to do that. It was good to see him. Another recognition of 50 years of commitment here in Kalamazoo to very, very important service that obviously makes a difference to everybody it touches. So I want to recognize his family. I believe his his children are intending to carry on with the business, and we're looking forward to that. Last proclamation is Commissioner Pradle. I just want to say before Commissioner Pradle reads this is that Commissioner Pradle has a great gift, which is impressive to me, as he runs around in his very busy life with 3 young children and a full-time executive director job and having a full-time working wife. I don't know how you pull it off to still remember that you need to be recognize those around you that are doing great work and being generous in that recognition. And so thank you, Commissioner Pradle, for realizing that we need to do this as we come to the end of our remote meeting cycle. So with that said, Commissioner Pradle, please.
Mr. Mayor. I'm a student of history. I love history. And, you know, if there's anything that can be learned from 100 years ago, and we had the last significant pandemic in our world's history, is that people will study this time in our history. And I thought, you know, even though this group of people we're going to recognize tonight are just a small sampling of the people who've really brought democracy and the democratic process to the citizens of Kalamazoo, there's, as the mayor said earlier, there's people who've been behind the curtain who've worked incredibly hard to make sure that we've been able to really, without a bat of an eye, keep this process going as best as we can through pretty unprecedented times. So I thought it was pretty important to recognize these individuals. So here we go. So this is a proclamation recognizing the significant contributions of city staff in making remote meetings accessible to the public throughout the pandemic. Whereas the COVID-19 global health pandemic generated significant uncertainty and urgency in March 2020 as to how governmental entities would create and maintain public access to meetings in a virtual format. And whereas the following City of Kalamazoo staff members were instrumental to providing accessible virtual public meeting, work sessions, and town halls, including Deputy City Manager Shelby Moss, Communications Coordinator Neil Conway, Marketing Communications Specialist Amanda Cockcroft, and the entire Information Technology Department, including Andy Miller, who I believe is helping steer the ship tonight, to Jan Chestnut, Don Hepler, Tim Snape, John Thurn, Todd Brasher, Jolinda Jack, Ben Clark, Lisa Madrid, Karen Conley, Joe Ulleray, and then Tim Du Bois. And whereas these individuals aided in the coordination and scheduling, authoring of public notices, facilitation, and playing of comments for over 280 public meetings since the start of the pandemic, with most of these meetings being conducted before or after regular business hours. And whereas the past 21 months garnered renewed citizen interest with record participation through live stream viewership, public comments, periods, and meeting durations. And whereas in addition to public meetings, the IT department rapidly aided in the transition into a mobile workforce, including procuring laptops on a massive scale and rapidly deploying over 40 systems to enable essential workers to work remotely and to continue to take care of the needs of the citizens of Kalamazoo. And whereas Deputy City Clerk Moss also executed 4 record turnout elections in 2020 and implemented a number of unprecedented voter accessibility and safety measures. And whereas the communications and marketing staff provided vital communication strategies to inform the public of essential safety information and resources. Now, therefore, I, Commissioner Chris Pradle, on behalf of the 54th City Commission, and David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby recognize the significant contributions of the City of Kalamazoo's IT department, clerk's office, and communication and marketing team, who maintain citizen accessibility to public meetings throughout the COVID-19 global health pandemic, and further honor their noteworthy service in an unprecedented time in our community's history.
Well said, Commissioner Pradle. Mr. Du Bois, I see you're here tonight. Are you interested in making any comments?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I just wanted to say thank you for the recognition. It is quite the honor and pleasure to work with a team that is dedicated to the betterment of the city. And every day they come to work and with the attitude of how can we make this better. So I really appreciate the honor and the recognition for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Managerisma, please make sure that anyone who was not able to hear the proclamation tonight sees it and is aware of it and understands our appreciation and gratitude.
I sure will. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes commissioners would like to see? Commissioner Hoffman?
Sorry, it's Commissioner Hoffman. Yes, I saw the agenda, and there are a couple of things that I wanted to bring off the agenda for discussion, and that was item 9 and item 11.
So on the consent agenda, item G9 on the consent agenda will be moved to the regular agenda for discussion, and item G11 will be moved to the regular agenda for discussion. Are there other changes or additions to the agenda? Clerk Borling.
Thank you, Mayor. This is City Clerk Scott Borling. Commissioners, I am requesting that an item be added to the consent agenda, and that item is approval of a request from New Year's Fest of Kalamazoo to publicly display fireworks from the Epic Center parking structure on December 31st as part of the annual New Year's Fest event. Staff was busy, very busy doing their due diligence on this, and that the recommendation is for approval of that. This is kind of an annual thing that we do. So I'm requesting that that be added to the consent agenda as item 14.
Thank you, Clerk Borling. Attorney Robinson. You're muted. Just while you're muted a second, Attorney Robinson, I was just going to say, is it okay, generally speaking, with the commission that that item go on the consent agenda? No need for discussion on that? Okay, fine. All right, thank you. Yes, Attorney Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Clyde Robinson, City Attorney. I would ask that a matter be added to the regular agenda, and that would be an authorization to for the City Attorney to execute the National Opioid Distributor Settlement Participation Form and any associated documents with that, so as to permit the City of Kalamazoo to participate in the opioid settlement with the distributors.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. So that will be added to our regular agenda. All right, seeing nothing else. Next is communication, City Managerisma.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. And I too just want to applaud Commissioner Prado for recognizing staff and the work they do day in, day out, especially the IT team in this case, relative to making our meetings virtual and meaningful. And they've done an incredible job. You recognize DCM Chamberlain, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. I too applaud him for being the MC for our city commission meetings, and he's done a great job. And I also want to ask that the public go back and view the committee of the whole meeting that was held at 5 o'clock, where we provided an update of the Imagine Kalamazoo work plan and accomplishments both in 2021 and what we look forward to in 2022. And excuse me, our Community Planning Economic Development Director, Rebecca Kick, our city planner, Christina Anderson, and our community planner, Nolan Bergstrom, and our Assistant Director of Public Services Division, Anthony Ladd. They knocked it out of the park once again, and what a great team they are together. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Managerisma. Excuse me. Next on the agenda are public hearings. So I would like to open a public hearing to receive comments on an ordinance to rezone 1011, 1017, 1029 Denner Street, and 1405 Alamo Avenue from residential single dwelling district RS5 to residential Duplex District, RD 19. Managerisma, is there a staff presentation on this?
There is not, Your Honor, but we do have community planning, economic development staff available if there are any questions.
Thank you, Managerisma. Are there questions for city team from commission? All right, seeing none. I'm sorry, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mary Anderson. It's not more of a question, but just a comment for Mr. Tardani. I was doing some of the research and kind of looked at, what the paperwork said and some of the other homes that he has purchased. And I want to say that I'm glad that he is requesting these rezonings because, this is really what the city needs. It needs more housings that hopefully will be affordable to our residents. He is trying to stick within the strategic plan of doing a complete neighborhood. He owns a few properties over in that area, and he's been building them up, making them safe, making them habitable for the residents of Kalamazoo. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, and hopefully, you'll be able to move forward and do other things with other properties to put the infill that we need on these lots, empty lots, or take care of dilapidated homes and take on that responsibility. That is a big responsibility to take on. It's a big feat to do. Working with the city, I think that is a great thing to do. I definitely believe that we should support him going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other questions for staff at this point? DCM, I see none. DCM Chamberlain, are there any public comments?
Yes, sir. We have received some, and we'll go ahead with those now for the public hearing.
Thank you.
Hello there. I am a resident of Kalamazoo, and I have questions regarding the Denner Street project. The house on the corner already has 2 visible meters, and the city knows that this was already a duplex. So I'm curious as to why they cannot reinstate it. Why would there be a zoning change if there is no plan for a future larger use? I had a neighbor that got a variance for his duplex that wasn't registered correctly, but then when he bought the house, they got a variance for it, and he did not have to rezone. RD8 would be needed at the most, not RD19. Why is there a request for this RD19, which would be for a bigger build out? Does the owner guarantee that would be no future development and not sell to a developer that would build a bigger thing, which is usually part of the long-term plan? Why is a private individual getting 3.67 of the budget when they own 24 plus properties? Where is the oversight for the money on this project and for the 4 houses that he was given money for? And where is the breakdown for the spending on those 4 projects? And let's see, will the owner guarantee not to combine the parcels for the future for a build out? Will you please stop this vote until the spring, either until you guys return? It looks like you guys are trying to get an extension on you guys being able to Zoom, but for the actual neighborhood to have meetings and people get together on this. It looks like between administration and unallocated funds that there looks like that's about 29.32% of the budget. So I'm also curious about that and a discussion of where those unallocated funds go to and many more questions. This 3-minute thing obviously isn't much for being able to get any type of back and forth going. And also, lastly, my other question is that a neighbor had told me that somebody down there on Denner had illegally cut down walnut trees, and I was curious if this was also the individual who illegally cut down walnut trees worth thousands, only to have to pay a $100 fine per tree. I'm not saying that they are, but I know that I was told that was going on in the neighborhood. again, this is a private individual getting $90,500, and between, let's see, local initiatives that got $20,000, fair housing that got $20,000, youth development that got $11,500, small business loans getting $11,280, and critical minor home repairs $80. The fact that we have a private individual getting more than all of these individual taxpayer and needed services is not so jamming. I'll be contacting you guys in the future.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last public comment for the public hearing.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. At this point, then, I would like to close the public hearing. In order for us to have discussion on this, there needs to be a motion. So, Commissioners, the recommended action for item E1 is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Decker. Maybe I know that some questions were raised in public comment. So is there a staff person that might be available to just respond to some of those questions at this point? Managerisma, I'm sorry.
Yes, City Manager, this is Pete Eldridge, Assistant City Planner. And I'm sorry, Mayor Anderson. I just wanted to make a few comments related to, what you just heard. I can't speak at all to the funding, but I was in on the rezoning, and we have a series of larger lots along that west edge of Denner Street that abut Fairmont Park. And Fairmont Park is already in that RD19, that duplex zoning district. So this is just an expansion of the duplex zoning district over these larger lots that vary in size from 1/3 of an acre to 1.8 acres. And two of the properties have non-conforming duplexes that have not been in use for a number of years. So they've lost their grandfathered status. So they're essentially, only allowed to be used as a single family home, but they've already been laid out as a duplex. So that was another reason for this rezoning, was to be able to actively use two of those structures in the present, utilize the present floor plan that's there. And there was a comment made about multiple meters on the house on the corner. The property on the corner of Denner and Alamo is already a 3-unit, so it is non-conforming also, but it's actively being used as a 3-unit. So there are multiple meters on that house. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Eldridge. There you are. Director Kick, would you like to respond to any of those issues just to help the commission here?
Absolutely. Thank you. This is Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, Rebecca Kick. And I wanted to be able to respond to the funding question. The funding was applied through a round of HUD funding that was approved by our CDAC board. So the Community Development Advisory Commission had held an application round, and that is how Mr. Tardini received the funding for this particular development.
The commissioners, this is the time for discussion. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Hess.
Question for Director Kick. This is Commissioner Jean Hess. Talking about future development on these these parcels. Should we approve this tonight, we would have to rezone again for larger developments. Is that correct? Or is this zoning, would this cover a larger like apartment dwelling?
I would actually defer to Assistant City Planner Pete Eldridge for that question, Commissioner Hess, just because he's had much more conversations through the Planning Commission with the developer as well.
Thank you. Again, this is Pete Eldridge, the Assistant City Planner. And to answer that question, so we are through this rezoning increasing the density from a single family zone district to a zone district that allows for single family and duplex dwellings. So this is a modest increase in density. Yes, they are large lots. In fact, they're so large that some of them could be divided through the Michigan Land Division Act and additional duplexes built. So there is means of increasing the density, but this is not going from single family zone to a medium or high multifamily zone district. Is that, hopefully that helps answer that question a little bit. So yeah, we are, what you're going to see really is duplexes. If there is additional development, that's what you would see out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff or discussion? Commissioner Pradel.
Mr. Mayor, this is Chris. I just wanted to make a note that the Planning Commission did unanimously approve this recommendation to come to us as the City Commission. They did that at their October 7th meeting. And if you do get a chance to look back at that, they did have an extensive presentation. They had an opportunity to interview Mr. Tardani, and I believe there were a couple callers that called in as well. So they did really study this. And you can look back at page 19 of our packet as well. It's got the Planning Commission minutes as well. So if you want a little bit of background and a synopsis of that meeting as well, it's there. I just wanted to make sure to add that the Planning Commission was universally in favor of moving this forward to us.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. And as just a reminder to all of us and everyone who's participating, one step in this process is going to an unheralded, perhaps, board of city volunteers that rigorously evaluates these kinds of actions and makes their recommendation to us. And it is not always a recommendation for it to be passed. Sometimes the Planning Commission doesn't accept requests for these kinds of changes. Just a quick question here related to a couple specific things. One for you, I guess two for you, Director Kick, and then back to you to Assistant State Planner Eldridge. So number one, Director Kick, how does this fit into our planning, our Imagine Kalamazoo, our intentions around housing, just in the grander scheme of things? And then when a person receives some funding through this process, HUD funding recommended by CDAC, are there any requirements that come with that?
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. This is Director Kick. So the way this fits into Imagine Kalamazoo is certainly our desire to have local developers doing work within our community at every scale. And so this neighborhood scale development, doing duplex, is really fits into the neighborhood plan. The second part that you asked me is about the HUD funding. Requirements come along with that. And so there will be income restricted units that are within these new builds. And that is the requirement of the HUD funding, is that we get into a deeper area median incomes and that we're able to provide more affordable housing within the neighborhoods as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Assistant Planner Eldridge. So the comment that maybe all these large lots, and I actually have lived very close to this area for quite a while. I actually was very, very involved in creating the dog park way back a generation or two ago. But so I'm familiar with it. But could this be turned into one parcel and, a 50-unit building built on it under this zoning change.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. This is Pete Eldridge, Assistant City Planner speaking. So there's two things that would prohibit that. First of all is the fact it's in a duplex zone district, so it has limited density allowed, even if they were to develop like cluster housing in there. Second, since we have passed the Natural Features Protection Ordinance, there is substantial topography changes towards the west edge of the properties as they transition into the city park. And, there's going to be development limitations on that portion of the property. So, there's two things that are going to limit, any large scale development. Like I said, the first is the zoning that we have put forth tonight. And second is the Natural Features Protection Ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other discussion or questions for our city team? Yes, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just wanted to see if anyone had any information as to regarding the properties that Mr. Tardani currently owns and has rehabbed and rented out. Have there been a lot of complaints from his tenants, if we know of anything like that?
I'll be glad to field that. Again, this is Pete Eldridge, the Assistant City Planner. I'm personally not aware of any complaints. Mr. Tardani has contacted the city on a number of properties he's been working on. In fact, I have talked to him on and off about various houses around the city for probably the last 2 years. So he has, been very diligent in contacting staff and checking zoning and, checking to see what permits are needed. But yeah, in order to fully answer that, I have to, pull up his properties and check them all. But no, I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And again, I just kind of asked that question to kind of bring to the forefront, if it could be a debate or a discussion, if he did own a lot of properties here within the city, and if he was not keeping those up to date, if he was not being a stellar landlord. So I just kind of want to bring that out and let the community know that, there are definitely a lot of individuals that are here that are looking for the betterment and to make sure that we build good affordable housing and that we also, keep the neighborhoods zoned correctly to make sure that we can make sure they move those forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Attorney Robinson.
I appreciate the concern expressed by Commissioner Decker, but I wanted to give the commission a little bit of education. This is a zoning or a rezoning, and you have to look at it, not who's asking for it or what you may think of that individual who's seeking the rezoning. This is, you have to evaluate it on whether it makes sense from a zoning and planning perspective. And so you can't let the personality of the individual who's seeking the rezoning color or move the needle on your decision. You have to, because that's not appropriate. It's only appropriate to look at it. Is this a good recommendation from the staff and from the planning commission in terms of, does it make sense from a zoning and planning perspective?
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Any other questions or discussion?
I have just a
Yeah,
comment.
Commissioner Juarez, yes.
I think it would, I get what Attorney Robertson is saying, but if we have an individual, personally, I don't know him, and this is not towards him, but if we have an individual who owns a lot of property, who is a slumlord or is doing things inappropriate and not giving fair opportunity and things like that, I mean, that would be a concern for us as a commission to make sure we're thinking of the community as a whole, even in the zoning decisions, right? So I think, because I've come across and I know of many landlords that don't take care of the properties that they have. And if we're giving opportunities for those landlords and people to develop and build and who have a track record of not being able to take care of people in their properties, then why would we allow that to take place in our city? And so I get the process of like looking at it from a zoning perspective, but I think the character of an individual and how they treat people and how they treat their properties is super important also, especially for the residents of our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Any other questions for the city team or discussion? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you again, Mayor. I just wanted to ask about community engagement around this process. Was there any communication with the neighbors and the residents that currently live there? And if not, is that something that we will work harder at doing? So thank you.
Commissioner Hoffman, I'll be glad to answer that. This is Pete Eldridge, the Assistant City Planner. And as far as the community engagement, with any rezoning, we send public hearing notices to the surrounding property owners within 300 feet. We did that before the Planning Commission meeting, and we did that again before tonight's meeting. So there was two rounds of letters sent by the city. In addition to that, Mr. Tardani also sent letters out to residents along Denner Street to further inform them in more detail of his project and what he was planning to do with these properties that were being rezoned. So so there was 3 informational pieces, so to speak, that were sent out to surrounding property owners to advise them of what's before the commissioners tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question, Commissioner Hoffman. So by ordinance or statute, I guess, we are required to make these official notices happen within very specific timeframes and very different and very specific geographic outreach. I would say, generally speaking, correct me if I'm wrong on this though, Assistant Planner Eldridge, if there were an active neighborhood organization in this neighborhood, which has been called Douglas or West Douglas variously, then that neighborhood association would have gotten a letter also, even if they were beyond the 300 foot. I think that's generally how it works for any neighborhood that has an active neighborhood association, which doesn't happen to be the case in this neighborhood at this point. Anything else? All right, thanks so much. Seeing no further discussion, Clerk Borland, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The motion passes. Next is the opportunity for general public comments. DCM Chamberlain, do we have any comments for our meeting this evening?
Yes, sir, we do, and we'll begin with those right now. Thank you.
My name is Alfonso Harris. I live in the 900 block of North Burdick Street in the city of Kalamazoo. I want to say that today is International Human Solidarity Day, which celebrates diversity and also fighting poverty. I read that it's 11% poverty nationwide. And one of my suggestions to deal with this is to give to food pantries or shelters. The one I recommend is the Daytime Shelter Ministry with Community, better known as the Drop-In. I've been a client there. I've been a former volunteer, and I am a current donor. Thank you.
Jeff Messer, city resident. Please remove item F11 from the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda so that the public may ask staff questions. According to the purchase agreement for 440 South Burdick Street, The sale is part of a larger AVB Hinman project that will include the adjacent property at 116 West Cedar Street, which is a former public safety training center. Back in 2017 and 2018, there was a lot of press about this property, including a public meeting at the library to solicit redevelopment ideas. It seemed that city staff wanted this property redeveloped with a community purpose in mind. As recently as December 2019, Nomai Developers was proposing a 10-story apartment building that would contain 81 housing units, most or all of which would be permanent supportive housing. What community purpose does AVB Hinman plan for 440 South Burdick Street and 116 West Cedar Street? Moving on to item N on tonight's agenda, does that closed session regard the police union contract, and will the commission return for a vote? This is how the police contract is usually approved. The commission goes into a closed session without telling the public what they are going into closed session for. Then they return to open session and announce that they are voting to approve the police contract, then immediately approve it without public discussion or input. In the future, the commission should make the police union contract available for public review for at least 2 weeks before voting on it. It is because there is never any public review of the police union contract that the union creates rules that make it very difficult to remove bad actors from the police force, which consumes nearly half of the city's budget. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shona Espinoza, and I am a city resident. I am calling because we need the city commissioners, the mayor, and the vice mayor to be out here helping do this community work that the orgs are out here doing. There is so many needs in the community that aren't being met, but the orgs and the people that live in the community are helping them. Jim Rinsema, you're trash. You don't do anything but cause harm to people, especially to the Black and brown communities. David Anderson, you're trash. All you do is cause harm to the Black and brown community, and you don't give a damn about nobody except for rich white men that could put more money in your pocket, and you're out here just doing basically nothing, so I don't even know why you're the mayor. You should just go home and sit down and continue to do nothing. The city commissioners, we need your help out here doing community work. We're really out here busting our butts out of our own pocket and the citizens of Kalamazoo pockets, making sure that people aren't dying in the winter, being fed, doing all the stuff that you guys should be doing. But no, you guys are out here. We're emailing you guys, we're calling, and we're not getting anything in return. So I'm just like at a loss. What are you guys really supposed to be doing if you guys aren't doing nothing? But David Anderson, you need to step down. The city commissioners, you guys need to make a vote and fire Rinsema.
Hello, good evening, commissioners. I'm trying to leave a message for the public comment time. Talk a little bit about how communication and trust with the city is not always easy or there at all. I have communicated with people about stuff and I get nowhere. I get no response. I get, we'll look into it, or, you can file this form, or you can go talk to this person over there. And this person over there says, you can go talk to that person over there. And that person over there says, oh, you could talk to that person over there. And it just goes on and on like that until, I end up talking to a lot of the same people 15 times. And it's not working. It's not fair. I don't get it. I ran into an officer and a sergeant and a lieutenant who all assured me that the park's closed at dusk. And there is a park rule that says that. It's true. There is. But some of you sitting there right now passed a resolution or an ordinance. I don't know what the proper term is. I'm not a lawyer. To say that you're allowed to be in Bronson Park. And they all assured me when I brought it up specifically, Bronson Park doesn't close. They said, yes, it does. Yes, it does. And you cannot be there, or you can be cited for a misdemeanor crime. So then I called the cops on a dozen families looking at Christmas lights. And then an officer and a sergeant and a lieutenant all assured me Bronson Park does not close. It never closes. It makes it very hard for me to understand what I'm supposed to do as a citizen. I don't get it. Am I allowed to play fetch with my dog without fear of going to court or to jail or paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in fines and having a criminal record? This is concerning to me. I do not understand what your expectations are. And nobody seems to be able to file a complaint. And I get no response. I got a call this morning that said those questions have already been addressed. I find that concerning because the method of a
Hi, my name is Tina and I live on Lake Street. I am from Kalamazoo and I do live in the city of Kalamazoo. I have lived in the city of Kalamazoo all my life. Said you have to do your public comment before at the beginning of the meeting because I really don't know what this meeting is about. But my question to all of you, are you ever going to fix the sewers in Southtown neighborhood? You know, Lake, Stockbridge, Birdie, Crosstown, John, Walter, Vine Park, and up John Park area. All around the whole neighborhood. Your storm drains fill the streets and flood the streets. Backs up the sewers every time it floods. This is the same question I have been asking since 2017. I still haven't gotten any answers. We get this 2 to 3 times a year, every single year. Your infrastructure in this neighborhood is failing and has been failing for years. Please fix the river where it is filled with the settlement from the Morrow Dam release. That also is a factor in the river's flooding our homes with water. We get mud, we get sewage. Is not fair. I know we are a poor neighborhood. We are a Southtown neighborhood. But no resident of the city of Kalamazoo should not have this happening to their home. We've worked hard for our homes all our lives, and we've taken care of our homes. But you refuse to acknowledge the problem. You would not want this in your home or your streets. You would not want to be trapped in your home for at least 4 to 5 days. Can't get in, can't get out. Nobody else can either. Why should we have to deal with this all the time? Now we have heard with your Pod City coming in the neighborhood, the known floodplain area, more sewage. Would you fix your infrastructure in Southtown neighborhood? I mean, no homeowner should have to deal with this sewers. We already have enough drive-by shootings. Crime is out of control. People drive so crazy they fly down my street, and I live right by the police station on Lake Street. Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last public comment for this session.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. I appreciate it. Next is the consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Your Honor. And we have 14 items, of which item 9 and item 11 are being pulled to the regular agenda. So the other items are as follows. First is the approval of a 2-year contract with Miller Canfield Law Firm for labor law attorney services in the amount of $108,000 and authorize the city attorney to sign the contract on behalf of the city. Next is the approval of a 1-year contract with AT&T for the purchase of Centrex phone services in the amount of $130,000. Next is the approval of a 3-year contract with Rathco Safety Supply Incorporated for rental of traffic control devices with an anticipated annual cost of $229,642.50. Next is the approval of a 3-year agreement with OpenGov Incorporated for the OpenGov suite of software to include operating and capital budgeting, online budget book, reporting and analysis, transparency, open town hall, performance measures, workforce planning, dashboards, story builder, non-financial integration, and premium support, and the OpenGov University, with the total contract amount not to exceed $307,251.66. Next is the approval of a 1-year contract extension with the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority through the IBEX Insurance Agency for property and casualty insurance annual premium and member loss fund deposit for an amount not to exceed $1,049,177. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting a public hearing on January 3, 2022 to consider the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget for the city of Kalamazoo. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting the schedule of regular city commission meetings for the 2022 calendar year. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving 11 new neighborhood enterprise zone homestead applications in the Vine neighborhood. Next, the approval of a grant agreement accepting $67,644 from the Recycling Partnership to support improvement of recycling program materials quality, resident engagement, and materials recovery. Next is the approval of a purchase agreement for the sale of 478 Reed Street to John and Brooke Green for $250. Next, the approval of an amendment to the Northside Cultural Business District Authority bylaws to reduce the size of the board of directors from 10 to 9 members. And finally, approval of a request from the New Year's Fest of Kalamazoo to publicly display fireworks from the Epic Center parking structure on Friday, December 31, 2021 at midnight as part of the annual New Year's Fest event.
Thank you, Managerisma. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 8, 10, and 12 through 14, and to authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved. Commissioner Hess.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hoffman. Clerk Boiling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Next is item H1 on the regular agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
We have adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 5 of the Kalamazoo City Code regarding the duties of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
I believe that staff are here to answer any questions that may.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time from the commission? Seeing none, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney, seconded by Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Seeing no, Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Commissioner Chris Pradel. I just wanted to note that I'm going to abstain from this vote just because the nonprofit that I leave could potentially be a recipient of the funds from this O'Connor fund through the Community Foundation. So I'll be abstaining.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next is item H2, formerly consent agenda item G9, City Managerisma.
Authorization for the city attorney to execute 2 release of claims between the city and Aloha Kalamazoo LLC and its insurer, Auto Owners Insurance, for damages sustained by that business due to a sewer backup on January 16, 2021.
Thank you, Managerisma. Attorney Robinson, do you have a report on this?
I can answer questions. In essence, the city is generally immune from claims for tort, but there are exceptions to that immunity, and sewer backups are one of the exceptions. And in this case, there was a sewer backup in January of this year. There has been a lot of negotiations and discussions as to the number one, the extent of the damage. Was there city liability? I can say that based upon my conversations with Mr. Baker and members of his staff, there was a backup. There was a problem in the main that caused the sewer to back up into the business, into the lower level of the business, causing substantial amount of damage. And fortunately, since that time, a lot of man cover have been equipped with a sensor. So hopefully this will not be a repeat event, because the sensor will detect if the water is rising, and city crews can get to that vicinity and knock down the blockage before it significantly backs up into surrounding homes or businesses. Unfortunately, given the amount of equipment and stock and other accessories to the building that were being stored in the lower building, part of the building, there was a substantial amount of damage. In addition, there was insurance coverage by the tenant. They're the ones that really received most of the damage. The insurance company said, well, we paid to the degree of the policy limits, but because, again, city, you were liable, we have to be reimbursed as well. So it's a total settlement both for the tenant for his uninsured losses and to reimburse the insurance company for its payment of the policy limits.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Questions from the commission for city staff? I don't see any right now. Attorney Robinson, does the city carry insurance?
We do carry insurance. We are part of a municipal pool. Again, a little bit of history. Back in the 1980s, due to some Michigan Supreme Court decisions, municipalities were facing a lot of liability, and you could not get insurance, or if you could, it was extremely expensive. So what many of the communities did is they did one of two things. They either went, if you will, without insurance, or they funded their own insurance fund, or they pooled together. And that's what Kalamazoo did. We are a member of the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association, the MMRMA. That is a group of municipalities and governmental entities, which include the CCTA, for instance, the Central County Transportation Authority, and they cover losses. However, there is a self-insured retention or a deductible, if you will, and so we have to cover the first $250,000 of any claim. So as a result, this payment comes out of our own insurance fund locally. It won't be covered by our insurance pool.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you again. Attorney Robinson, I needed a little bit more clarity. You said, so we're going to be reimbursing auto owners insurance and also paying for uninsured items or things like that?
Yep. For instance, a good example is if you experience damage to your home, you oftentimes have a deductible, or even sometimes the insurance company will cover because of your policy limits. So you, or your home or your car, for instance, you got collision coverage, but you only got $500 deductible or $500 total claim. The insurance company will pay you the $500, but if you had $1,000 worth of damage, you're gonna have to pick up the other 500 on your own. In this case, there was well over $150,000 of damage to possessions and the structure itself. Auto owners paid the first 50, so the remainder of that damage was not covered by insurance, and so the tenant had a claim for the remaining amount of damages that were sustained.
Other questions for anyone on the city team? Commissioner Decker.
So I just want to, as I'm looking at the release of claims here, so releasing of the claims means that this, they cannot come back to the city and request any more funds. So it would be $50,000 to Aloha, Kalamazoo.
No, the 50,000 goes to auto owners.
Am I reading this wrong then? Okay, I do apologize. I see that behind there. Okay, thank you. And then, so can you speak to, so then we're also doing a payment of $213,000?
Yes, that goes to the Aloha Kalamazoo.
And that is who technically owns the physical building itself,
No,
correct?
no,
No.
the owner of the building is 19 Props LLC. They are the owner, but they did not sustain any damages, but they signed the release because I insisted on it. I didn't want to, because under the lease, Aloha Kalamazoo, which operates Shakespeare's Pub, they are responsible for the physical structure of the building. So when there was the damage, that was on their dime that they had to pay for that repair and the cleanup. And so the landlord was free from any of that, but I did not want to enter a settlement with auto owners and the tenant and then have the owner of the building, which is 19 Props LLC, to come in and say, oh, you owe us too, because we sustained some damage. So leases release the owner of the building, the tenant of the building, and the insurer of the tenant.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Juarez.
At any time, did we have anybody from the city assess the damage, or was the damage just assessed by the insurance company?
We have a contract with a appraisal and damage firm that when we have a claim, they come in and they assess the damage, and they did that work, and it was their work that led to the numbers that we came up with.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Other questions for city staff? Seeing none at this point, then the recommended action is a motion to adopt in essence, adopt this motion. Is there a proposal to adopt it?
So moved, Commissioner Pradel.
So moved by Commissioner Pradel. Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Hess.
All right, thank you so much. Any other discussion? Commissioner Pradel.
Sure. I will share something. I had the owner reach out to help kind of navigate the situation with the city. City Attorney Robinson and his team have been as helpful as possible. But if you can think back to when this occurrence happened, it was January 19th, 2021, which was still when a number of restaurants were still under significant restrictions from the state and could effectively only serve people who were doing pickups and whatnot from food. And this is an establishment, a large establishment downtown that's a small business. They effectively had been knocked in the teeth, from COVID and the impacts that had on their business. They employed dozens of people in that location. And, during the peak of the pandemic and the impacts on our the restaurant industry, this incident happened to them, effectively causing all of their food and stock of items having to be effectively thrown away. the basement. They had to have, just like health and safety mitigation type things, and they had to pay for that up front. So during a time when they were already struggling, had to pay for those things up front, and then had those damages in the basement long enough that when we did open up to the public, where the public could start coming for venues and shows where they could have been making money, lost out on significant amounts of money that they could have been making from paying customers as well during that whole period while this was figured out. And so, for my personal opinion, if we were in the wrong in this situation and the law supports it, we give out lots of small business loans to support people to sustain themselves during the pandemic. And, effectively, this could really hurt a pretty iconic establishment in our downtown. It's been good to our downtown and employs a lot of people. So I am supportive of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The motion passes. Next is item H3, which was formerly consent agenda item G11, related to 440 South Burdick sale. Managerisma.
Approval of a purchase agreement for the sale of 440 South Burdick Street to Burdick and at Cedar LLC for the sale price of $1,000.
Thank you, Managerisma. Now that this is on the regular agenda, would you like to provide any staff report on this?
Again, staff are available to handle any questions, specifically our Community Planning Economic Development Director, Rebecca Kick.
All right, thank you, Managerisma. Commissioner Decker.
I just want to make sure I heard that right. Is the sale, I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Decker, City Attorney or City Manager Ritzma. Is it the sale price of $1,000 or $100,000?
Did I say 1,000?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, $100,000.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
Other questions for Manager Ritzma or his team? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you again. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking today. However, I know pre-pandemic, we were having discussions about doing permanent affordable housing there, permanent supportive housing for that would reach down very, very low with NOMI developers. And that is something that we need critically here in our community. And so I'm a little baffled now how that deal fell through or fell apart. And now we're going to potentially put more workforce development housing and market rate housing when we have such a crisis. And so that concerns me. What happened with those two deals with the 81 units? Because there was a lot of traction being given to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Director Kick.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman, Mayor Anderson. So in 2018, the proposal that Commissioner Hoffman brought up, which was from NOMI Development, was a purchase agreement for a low-income housing tax credit project. At that time, NOMI was being super ambitious and had 3 low-income housing tax credit projects that city staff were helping them with. Another one of them, which is 530 South Rose Street, which is actually continuing to move forward. So many times when city staff are working with city property, and particularly with low-income housing tax credit projects, we have another one at 508 Harrison, which is with the River Caddis developers. Then everyone has kind of seen how Harrison Circle has come out of the ground. When a low-income housing tax credit project is not chosen by MSHDA, that developer, we've always given all of our developers the opportunity to either extend their purchase agreement or their memorandums of understanding. And NOMI chose not to extend their memorandum of understanding or their purchase agreement with us to continue to try and go after that project again. So it essentially fell apart when the developers said, we're done with this site, we're going to go finish the other projects that we were working on. So it was not a city decision to stop working on that project in any way, shape, or form. It was the developer that chose to move to a different site. And so we've been continuing to work with that development group. It is a bit of a different project now. It is a senior development at 530 Rose Street. But we do not currently have a proposal yet. We do have another low-income housing tax credit project that we are working very closely with Hollander Development on in a different location on a different piece of city property as well. But typically what we do, and even with this project, we don't know quite what it's going to be yet. And the first step in that journey is our purchase agreement, which gives 365 days for us to start navigating what the development is. In one of the phone calls that I believe it was Jeff Messer, one of our city residents, he had also mentioned the 116 Cedar Project, which is directly next door. That project is the one that actually went out for a request for proposals, and Hollander Development had won that RFP back in 2017, 2018 at that time. 440 South Burdick was not a part of that RFP, and it was not part of the development that the Hollander Development Corporation was doing on 116 Cedar either. They've always been very separate projects. However, with AVB and Hinman, they have purchased 116 Cedar from the city Brownfield. And with the type of project that they would like to do, they also sought to come and ask us for the 440 South Burdick project. Similarly, with low-income housing tax credits, the banks or MEDC or whoever you're seeking finances or incentives from, they want to see that you have land control. They just want to know that the city is behind your project. So at this time, that's what we're asking you to do, is to approve this purchase agreement for the next 365 days so that we can assure the developers that they have land control so that they can start seeking incentives and putting their pro formas together. So this will not be the last time that I come in front of you. As you know, we do have a city incentives policy, which does have robust requirements for affordable housing as well. And we will certainly be, we have been talking to the developers. They know what we would like to see in terms of affordable housing. We've had lots of conversations about, especially if the project can be larger, how we can support and how affordable housing can be a part of that. And I would love this commission, because I do know your passion and your expertise, and I want to continue to always work with all of you. And I think my CIO said it the best, always with a can-do attitude, and would love to continue to work on policies with you so that we are doing this on every single city project, right? And you guys don't have to worry about just this one project or just this one project that I'm bringing in front of you, but you can go, oh, remember we worked on that policy, that beautiful housing policy with CPED and Director Kick's staff, and we're assured that we're getting what we need on every single project that moves forward.
Thank you, Director Kick. Other questions for the city team at this point? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. Thank you, Director Kick. I just had a couple more questions regarding the particular property. So you said that in 2018 is when the previous organization was not able to, or did not want to move forward with that development. Is because they did not get the funding, correct?
Correct.
So so with that being said, how many, so it's sat vacant for about 3 years. And was this just something, I mean, I guess I'm wondering, with the, what is it, Oak, Burdick at Cedar, so this probably wasn't on their radar at that time to even think about acquiring this because they knew, or did they know that somebody else was trying to build something there? Or it's just kind of, they said, hey, this is going to fit within our plan of what we're trying to do and build this area up?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Decker. So that's how a lot of our communications go. It's Kalamazoo is still a pretty slow area. So, you know, we get reached out to often, but not the same properties that often, right? So this, I have records going all the way back to like 2013 on some of these properties. And then, you know, a developer tries to do something and then it goes away. And then, you know, in 2017, we do an RFP and then it went away. And then in 2018, you know, somebody tries to do a low-income housing tax credit project and then it goes away. And then somebody came to us in 2021 at the beginning of this year and said, hey, I've got an idea for that. And so we go, okay. And then we bring it back up and, you know, we don't know if this one will stay or if it will go away, right? That's just kind of the nature of development that we work with in Kalamazoo. And so we work with that developer until they're done or they don't want to work with us anymore. We can't meet their incentives or we can't, you know, they can't get the project financed, whatever it is that kind of makes it stop. But yes, that's the process. We do.
Okay.
And if we do have a project or a property, I will say like a very sought after property was that Edwards Street property, lot number 1, which is right behind Bates Alley, 140 South Edwards Street. It's quite large. It's nearly an acre. Now, 440 South Burdick isn't even like a quarter of an acre. It's very, very tiny, right? So there's not much room to do things on it. And so we did work with the Michigan Municipal League and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and we put out a proposal for that particular piece of property because we did get a lot of interest in it, so much so that we had a whole RFP and a scoring system and a panel of people who chose the developer for that site.
Thank you for that. And just another question. So like, as of right now, I was kind of reading in the purchase agreement that they have 365 days to come back to the city and say, hey, this is what we're planning on doing. This is what we want to do.
Yep.
And then again, we would have to approve that. So, you know, within that time frame, I guess, you know, they're still figuring out what they're going to do with that property, if it's going to be commercial, if it's going to be residential. But will the city have some sort of say and, hey, we need to have 50 units that are not market rent, but that are affordable. So can you talk to that a little bit of how, you know, purchasing this land and making this big development and, you know, kind of beautifying that area, but are they also going to make that some of those homes and condos and apartments, you know, really affordable, not just market rent for the citizens that live within Kalamazoo and that want to live downtown, but may not make that high income?
Sure. Great question. So with many developments, of course, it all comes down to what happens on their pro forma and what kinds of incentives they need from the city. So if they were going to do any sort of brownfield tax incentives, that plan I would be bringing back to you. If they're going to do any downtown economic growth authority incentives or any of those, at the end of the day, they all come back to you. If we were to give them any foundation for excellence dollars to do affordable housing or any kind of grants or funding in that sense, again, we will come back to you for those kinds of incentives. And that's where we really created that incentives policy, so that when developers want to ask us for a certain amount of incentives and many years of tax capture, then that gives us, again, kind of our own little points system to be able to say, not only do you have affordable rents for what we usually do is they come to us and they say how many apartments they can do, within their market study and within their financial pro forma. And so if they say they're going to do 50 apartments, then we try to say, okay, well, based on your pro forma, based on the number of incentives that you want, we would like to have, 15 to 20% of those apartments in this range. Can you do this many apartments in this range, this many apartments in this range? And so that's kind of how we hope to work with the developer on each of the different incomes to really truly give it a mixed income apartment living situation. And so that's where, we can come to the commission. And again, that's why I say, working on policy with all of you so that you're not so concerned with like every development that comes forward, because that based on policy, this is what we're going to be asking for, if we're giving X, Y, and Z out. You'll know that the way my team is scoring a project, if they want, millions of dollars worth of reimbursement, then okay, well, we also have a lot of sustainability measures in there too, right? Like, do you have a LEED building? Are your utilities low? That has been a huge concern. Not only is the apartment affordable, but also, do you have good, low utilities and things like that? Are you thinking about a solar array on the roof? Like, how is that building also performing for the residents that are there?
Okay, thank you for that. Because actually, I went down there today. I kind of drove around the area, stopped in and talked to, a couple of the businesses that are actually there. One that's been there for many, many years. I think he said since 1992. And one that's, just very fresh new. It's a new brick and mortar for her. So I do hope that they take into consideration that, to definitely keep these businesses in mind that have been there and that are a staple within that little area within the community. Yeah. And now with them also, getting the historic designation for the State Theater, to really keep the integrity of that building and that surrounding area that is already there. So thank you very much, Director Kay.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions for staff? Commissioner Juarez.
Yes. So I got just a lot of thoughts going on. So when it comes to city property, and some of the things that are taking place right now in our community, it would make sense for the city to be able to partner with certain developers who are looking to bring solutions to those certain crises we have in our city. Like, we have control of that, right? And then you're talking about some of the things that we would require of these developers when it comes to certain money they would receive, like from the brownfield or from other places. They're like those MOUs are like put them in that position. But let's say if this developer at some point in time says, like, we don't want to take any money from anywhere, we just want to develop and use it as market rate housing. What keeps us from allowing them to do that, right? Knowing that we have a housing issue, right? And again, like that process of getting developers, because I was when I used to work for Urban Alliance, we were at that discussion and at that table talking with certain individuals about this project. And I'm not so sure if I can recall if it was funding that he was that wasn't available, or they didn't get the funding for it. But it just seems like, something like that is so needed in our community. And so I hope that as a city, we can take into consideration, how do we make sure we're partnering with people who have that mindset to create solutions for the problems in our city? Again, especially if we have ownership of certain properties, and we're not just allowing these properties to be sold to people for profit, for a gain for them, right? And so I think we got to be really mindful of that stuff. And so yeah, I'm just a little, my hope is that we would see that as a city, we would see that we can make a difference by partnering with certain developers who have that intention to create solutions in our community. So yeah, I'm not so sure how much I would support this, because I just don't know, and then the other question is, or this is one of the questions I want to, so this developer comes, they want to develop on this property, and in the process, at what point do we say, is it okay for them to come to us without having like a real plan? Like and saying, well, we don't know what we're gonna put on here. We're not so certain. We're still thinking about it. We just want the right to be able to purchase it. For me, I would like to see that kind of be challenged in a way where we're not just allowing people to have the right to purchase property from the city without having a significant plan put in place before we make a decision to allow them to turn left or right on this situation.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. And to your first point, I want to kind of reiterate what I said about working with the commission on future policies, because right now, the way that how we sell property looks just like this, looks like today, right? So what would the future look like, if we start to work together on property sales? And I would welcome the opportunity to work with you on any of the policy changes that would help with projects across the city in that way. Exactly like you said, as solutions to problems that we are trying to solve. And I would like to think through that with you. And what does that look like? And what properties are they? Are there ones that are more important than others, where you could tell me, Director Kick, these are the most important properties to help solve this problem. Set those aside. We're going to do something special with them. These over here, first come, first serve. But I would love to sit down with all of you and prioritize what it is that you believe could help with those. And then your second part. Well, oh yes. So the second part of your discussion, which is about, somebody coming with a real plan. So there's kind of two parts to that. On one hand, I can totally agree with you and understand the want and the need to see what somebody's idea is and what they want to do. And then on the other hand, there's a risk sometimes for small developers, particularly, and I know we're not talking about a small developer in this case, but we have a policy that's applied to all, right? Where if they don't have control of the land, it's a lot to ask somebody to spend money on an architect or an engineer before they have some real trust or have some access to that land. And I think it's also AVB and Hinman. I mean, they have a portfolio of projects throughout the city, right? Like we kind of know what they do. So it's not a total unknown in terms of who they are. So I I totally hear you and I understand you. And I go back to kind of my first part of this where I'm kind of operating in world as it is. And I would love to work with this commission to think about world as it could be. And what does that look like under your leadership, and how can we collaborate on something in the future, no matter how tonight goes? You know, how do we collaborate on something for the future that looks the way you want me to bring a project to you in the future?
Yeah, I appreciate that. At any point in time, the last developer who was trying to secure the property, did they spend any money trying to figure anything out with the property, like testing the soil, any kind of samples there? Was there any kind of money spent to figure out if this is a property that can be buildable? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we don't really do that, particularly with low-income housing tax credit projects. We have really cut the requirements to like the barest bones, because especially with low-income housing tax credit projects, there's so much risk. If you don't get those tax credits and you've spent tens of thousands of dollars, you're really out of pocket, unless you keep trying with like the same design, and that may not always work. We try to work with the Local Initiative Support Corporation with LISC a lot on pre-development dollars. They give what they call a recoverable grant, and we work a lot with them, with nonprofit housing folks, as well as small developers. That kind of helps mitigate some of that risk, so that if you do need to get some of that environmental testing, and you've got to have that done, you know, before you can get your letter from your bank or your financing or anything like that, we do try to reach for those pre-development dollars from LISC first, to try and help them out. So not an impossibility, but just kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. At what point do we, as a city, and knowing the properties that we own and that are potentially can be sold to developers, do we know that these properties are buildable, or if they're contaminated, or if there's, you know, things that are a concern with the property before we can even get to the point to say, like, look, we want to sell you the property, but there's a lot of things going on already, you know what I mean? And so at what point do we as a city have that type of understanding of what's buildable and not buildable?
So I started to do some of that investigation on some properties that we knew we might want to start marketing. We've found out a lot of things, Commissioner Juarez, like in the middle of a developer, like trying to do something that have been kind of scary. And also, I'm going to use Harrison Circle as an example, because this was something like nobody saw coming. So we knew it was a brownfield, knew it was an old gas station, got the tanks removed, you know, had all of that contamination cleaned up. And then the rules changed at Eagle. And so the vapor barriers that you need to do residential above now had to include a vapor barrier for mercury, even if they found like the slightest trace amount, which added like $400,000 extra to the project. And the project was, you know, threatening to be just completely gone. And then Eagle came through with a awesome grant, and we got a grant to cover to do the vapor barrier and comply with the rules that Eagle had set forth for us. And sure, we knew it was there in the soil, but we didn't know we were going to have to cover it with this new type of vapor barrier, you know? So there are, I'm sure Mayor Anderson has a ton of stories for us about wild things that have happened on construction sites. But we do try, especially with our brownfield properties, those are the ones I know the most about, because as we pick them up, we do phase ones and sometimes what's called a baseline environmental assessment. when we get them. So we will have some anecdotal information about those properties, but it's usually once that new owner has it, we find out other things, other contamination or other rules that we have to follow. It's kind of part of the game.
This is my last thing. I swear. I just trying to understand, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So even with like bigger corporations and developers like Hinman and AVB,
Mhm.
you know, I think the standard for the city that we should be setting is that, you know, the plan of action could be presented to us, you know, at least that gives us the ability to say, man, like this is awesome, before they have to go and show that they have to prove that they have, you know, rights to the property or control of the property. And so for me, I think we have to kind of, you know, set that bar high, especially for developers who are developing and have been in the game for a very long time. It wouldn't be too much to ask some of these individuals to present that stuff to us to see, you know, like, okay, does it really fit into, you know, imagine Kalamazoo 2025, right? Is there some things that could, you know, could change along the way? Could it just become something that we didn't expect it to become? And so I just want us to be super mindful and really, you know, think through those things, because at the end of the day, it would be I think it would be very doable for, you know, developers like Hinman and AVB to present a solid plan to us before we can say, you know what, yes, you know, let's just go ahead and do this first, and then go through that whole process and be like, oh, you know, we should have just got to this in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I think I hope that that's a consideration we can look at before we just start making decisions and approving things without knowing truly.
Oh, thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you to Commissioner Juarez. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. Thank you very much for your openness, Director Kick. I look forward to working with you on that. I think that's really important that we do that. The dilemma for me is, okay, we have this property that's been sitting there for a long time. Nobody's picking it up. We got a chance to get another $100,000 for the city. On the other hand, we lose that property as a potential area for development for affordable housing that we need so bad. And to me, that's the dilemma there. Is this the time to give up on that and put it in the private sector? Or should we be waiting to see if there's any chance to get a grant or something that we could do that? That's my problem.
Okay, sure. And the Vice Mayor Cooney as well. And I think this kind of goes to, you know, maybe that work session we're almost planning in our heads right now, you know, I think between the just the brownfield, I know I've got 56 properties, you know, and that doesn't even include like some that we just have in the city. And then we've got, you know, lot 1 is a large parking lot. And that's what this one really is. You know, it's like we've got these parking assets, and that was part of Imagine Kalamazoo was, you know, turn parking lots into magic, you know. And I really love the way Commissioner Juarez said it, you know, how is it aligned with Imagine Kalamazoo, and, you know, how are these becoming solutions for the crises that we have in the city? And I never said it that way before. I've never phrased it that way before, and it really kind of hits home. So I think that there's a spreadsheet in our future with all of those properties on it where we can really look and put that to a work session, Vice Mayor Cooney. Really look at those properties and see which ones would we say, like, these are the most important properties for affordable housing in our city right now, and that's what we're going to use them for. And you know, Director Kick, don't bring us anything that isn't, you know, a great housing plan. I would love to have that work session.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Hoffman. You're muted, Commissioner Hoffman. There you go.
Thank you so much. Director Kit, thank you for everything that you've said. I just have a question as to what role does DAGA play in the process from the beginning, or is
Sure.
there a role?
There is a small role for the DAGA, the Downtown Economic Growth Authority. So the city, it's going to feel like a loop. So the city has a parking asset that then the Downtown Development Authority, the DDA, manages for the city through the Downtown Economic Growth Authority. So this item did go before their board, and they have to waive their first right of refusal to purchase the property from us or keep it as a parking asset. And so we did that meeting first a couple months ago, and they had many of the same questions that you all had too, wondering what the development was going to be, what was it going to look like, how's it going to be consistent, what are the affordable housing opportunities. And I did say many of the same things to them. You know, nobody's asked us for any incentives yet, and our incentives policy is certainly our strongest tool in terms of asking for what we need at that point.
This is Commissioner Hoffman again, and I have one more point I would like to make. So when we talk about the city's ability to require a developer to build affordable housing within, can you bring us some clarity? I just want to take this moment to educate us as a new commission and then the community as well, that we can't require, so we can strongly suggest, but can you go in just a little bit?
Sure. So the way that we have required a developer, we can't require somebody just like off the bat, like you're in this zone, and so therefore, you know, you're building on this lot, and so you must do affordable housing. The way that the city can compel someone to do affordable housing is through incentives. And so that's when we do a brownfield plan, when we do a TIF plan, the more money and the more years you want. And let me be clear, you know, a TIF dollars, tax increment financing, is not a check that we write to developers. Actually, they write us a check, and then we ask them to do affordable housing and solar panels and sidewalks and lighting and all of these things, and then slowly pay them back over the period of 25 years. It's just they give us the upfront cost, and then we pay them back very, very slowly. That's what the brownfield does. And the brownfield is not an excellent tool for affordable housing, but because we were doing so many brownfield plans that kept stretching out 22 years, 25 years, we thought, okay, we're reimbursing a lot of money. And developers have also asked for neighborhood enterprise zones, which are further property tax reductions. And with that, because we're seeing those pro formas change and the developers make a little more money, that's when we can ask for affordable housing. That's the tools that we are able to say, okay, you don't ask anything of us, we can't ask anything of you. But when you ask something of us, we get to ask something of you. I hope I said that okay, Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want us to use this opportunity to learn and for the community to learn right along with us. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hoffman. That's important. Managerisma.
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful if Director Kick would step back a little bit and kind of walk the commission through where we're at. So the process and where we're at in the process, and how many more times during the process will items come back to the commission, you know, guess relative to this project. So, this isn't the be all end all tonight. It's actually something to begin the process of figuring out what kind of project is there or would be there.
Thank you, City Manager Ritzma. Absolutely. And certainly not the last time for the public to be able to comment either, right? Because if this developer does choose to go through a brownfield plan, then this would certainly come to the brownfield board. And then all brownfield plans that got recommended by the brownfield board then also come to the city commission. So that final plan comes to the city commission. So I would, I'm happy always through email updates and however I can keep you in the loop about this project along its way. And of course, if we give any other kinds of incentives, whether they go after HUD dollars or home dollars, those would also be a public process through the CDAC board. And then Foundation for Excellence dollars. We have funding that can be had through that also for affordable housing. And so if they were to go after any type of grant for Foundation for Excellence, I would also bring those back to you.
Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, thanks, Your Honor. Director Kick too. I believe when the brownfield authorized or approved the purchase of the fire station, it was noted that the project was going to be a transformational project. Can you explain that a little, based on what was said at the brownfield level?
For 116 Cedar?
Yeah, so the transformational brown,
Oh, yes. So the brownfield sold the 116 Cedar site to AVB and Hinman as their overall vision is for a transformational brownfield site. So transformational brownfield is a state program which can be had if you do over $50 million worth of investment into an area. And so the brownfield sold the 116 Cedar site to AVB and Hinman, and the 440 South Burdick site is such a small site on its own, it would be really difficult to just develop that site. I mean, I think that was another part, and obviously I don't have John Durham and his partners to rely on right now, but I know they were having to deal with a very small footprint and go up very, very high to get the number of apartments that they wanted to get on that very small site. But being able to have 116 Cedar and the 440 South Burdick site, you get a little more room to kind of really create a nice project kind of at the bottom of that block. So with the transformational brownfield program, the other piece is 116 Cedar is extremely contaminated. So extreme that we could not do it as a city even on our own. We had talked for several years about rehabbing that as a public safety station, but the cost to abate the building alone was over $600,000. That's before we're even doing any kind of interior renovations or anything to the building at all. That's just to abate the building, which is a significant cost for such a small building. And it really does need the heft and the weight of at least a $10 million project to be able to come onto the site. And we're actually trying to go after a larger size project to be able to pay for the extreme contamination, demolition and abatement that has to happen on that particular site as well. If there's anything I'm missing, City Manager Ritzma, please let me know and go ahead and add into that.
Yeah, you hit on everything. Thank you.
Giving you guys all the weeds. Now you know what I do all day. And lots and lots of reading.
Other questions for staff? Seeing none at this time, I want to just add a little bit here. We've had a very, very long and I think very helpful discussion on this process. It's not simple. There's still a lot of pieces we need to talk about more. I really appreciate that. I just want to say from a developer perspective here a little bit, Commissioner Juarez, and partly just a little bit to answer maybe some of the comments during public comment is that outside of my responsibilities here in this stellar group, I spend most of my free time developing housing as a volunteer. And so that I've spent thousands of hours, and that's what I do on weekends and evenings and all that sort of thing, working hard for the city. And one of the things I'm involved with is development. And Commissioner Juarez, here is basically kind of the standard process for development. I happen to be very involved on the nonprofit side, not on the for-profit side, but it's the same, no matter where you go. And that is this, is that when you might have a general idea about what you want to do, let's say build affordable housing. And then, but where does every project start? What's the beginning of every project? It's a piece of dirt. And so you have to find a piece of dirt and then hopefully a piece of dirt that matches with your vision. And then what you need to do is you either need to buy that piece of dirt or you need to do something we're doing tonight, in essence, have a 1-year option on a piece of dirt or longer. And then you need to take your vision and turn it into reality. And that means even in the case of nonprofits, for example, I'm on the LIFT board. We have a project we've been working on for years now. We've got several $100,000 we've already spent on that project. And that project may never, come to fruition. So that is money that is gone at risk. And how do you spend that money? You basically have to spend that money doing soil testing, hiring architects, hiring engineers, coming up with a plan, do environmental testing, doing surveying, evaluating for wetlands, you name it. So you can spend a great deal of money on any given project. So because that's the way that development works, is that there's a lot of what's called soft costs before you ever start building to determine, can I indeed build my dream here on this piece of property? It makes no sense to not have property control. So certainly there are things that you can propose and say along the way, but until you know exactly what it is there room there to build the 82 unit thing that I wanted? No. Okay. Well, it's going to be 40 units. Is the 40 unit piece going to work? What's that going to look like? To do all that work, you need to have property control, because otherwise you're spending all that money and time and resource. And at the end of the day, that property could be gone. So you want to control it in some way with an option, with a sales agreement, so that if all these pieces come together and then you can get financing for it, whether it's from a bank or whether it's from low-income housing tax credits or whatever it is, that you can say when you're going to the bank or to MSHDA getting tax credits, here's our plan, we've checked all this, here's the environmental, here's the architectural drawings, here is all the pricing that's already occurred. We know how much this is going to cost to do this. You have to have all that nailed down when you go in to your bank or to MSHDA. And then you have to say to them, and we have land control at the same time. So that is one way, I guess, to manage your risk a little bit, that you're not doing all that work and then, oops, actually the land isn't ours anyway. So there's a lot of steps to all this, and it's complicated, and it's particularly hard, I would say, as Director Kick said, even for smaller developers to do all that work. But it's a huge challenge even for bigger projects as well. So I think the best thing we can do when it comes to affordable housing, and this is getting off script just a little bit, but making sure that when we are lucky enough in Kalamazoo, because getting tax credits is highly competitive in the state of Michigan, highly competitive. that when we have the potential for millions of dollars to be invested in Kalamazoo in affordable housing, which the primary, if not almost singular source for developing affordable housing to scale in this country is low-income housing tax credits. When a developer is lucky enough, to receive the potential for an award from the allocator, MISTA, that we can be there to support that development, to be a gap filler, to make sure that we don't lose that resource, because that will be the millions and millions of dollars that it takes to develop a project like Harrison Circle, like the Creamery, like potentially the senior project down on South Rose. That's what we can be as the city is trying to help fill those gaps. So that all said, it's a little off script, but we've just had a long conversation about affordable housing, and I look forward to a lot more on that. So any other questions for staff? All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve a purchase agreement for the sale of 440 South Burdick Street to Burdick et Cedar LLC for the sales price of $100,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Prado. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hoffman. Thank you so much. Any other discussion? Commissioner Decker. And then Commissioner Juarez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all the information, Director Kick. I came in with a lot of questions. You guys have answered, or you have answered a lot of them. I do want to see where this project goes. I do want to see what they plan on doing. I do look forward to getting those weekly, monthly, quarterly reports on how this project is progressing. So hopefully we'll be able to get that information just to keep us in the know of really what is happening and how we can also make sure that we are still keeping what's really important to the city in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Juarez.
Yes, I think part of, I appreciate all the comments, educating us on some of those things, Director Kick. And I think that for me, it's hard to support something that, like, if you're going to show me your dream so we can support it. If you have a vision, show me your vision so I can buy in and support it. And so it feels like that process of development. Yeah, there's a process to that. For me, I'm so that understanding somebody's vision, understanding somebody's dream, so that I can better know how to help with that. So I just want to make that clear, is that the more I understand on the front end, the better. And so I just wanted to make sure that's known. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Juarez. Other discussion? Seeing none at this time, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
No.
and Commissioner Prado.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The motion passes. We now have an item H4 on our regular agenda, and that is related to the National Opioid Distributor Settlement Participation Form. Managerisma.
Authorized.
Oh, that's a midstream freezing there. While we're waiting for Managerisma to come back, the motion is that we are going to be discussing. I move to authorize the city attorney to execute the National Opioid Distributor Settlement Participation Form and associated documents. And I'm going to ask Attorney
The
Robinson.
city attorney to execute the national.
Manager Ritz.
Mr. Mayor, I think what had happened, and I tried to send this out in the course of the meeting, is that this came in, as I indicated during the committee of the whole meeting, very late this afternoon. And as I was preparing that document regarding the distributors, there's also a manufacturer settlement that came in about 4:45. So the motion I would suggest is this, that you authorize the city attorney to execute the National Opioid Distributors and Janssen Settlement Participation Forms and associated documents.
All right. Attorney Robinson, can you provide some edification on this last minute action?
Certainly. As some of you may know, or it's been covered somewhat in the press, this is even pre-COVID, a group of municipalities and state governments through attorney generals and some even larger municipalities decided to bring a class action suit against manufacturers and distributors of opioids because of the opioid crisis and the havoc and that it wreaked on citizens throughout the United States. And those actions were brought both in federal court and in state court. Eventually, there was a order issued by the U.S. courts because they were all over the place, and they said, we're going to consolidate all of these class action suits in one court. And that was moved to the Northern District of Ohio. And so one judge took control of all that litigation. And they have been, over the last couple of years, and I've been privy to some conferences in terms of with the judge there. I mean, I was just an observant at that point because the city's interests were being represented by other class action, the attorneys for the class action. But we had indicated our willingness to participate. So there is a settlement that has been announced, or a proposed settlement, I should say that. It's nothing that has not been approved by the court, has not been approved by all of the participants, but it is a proposed settlement that would settle claims against 3 distributors and 1 manufacturer in the amount of $26 billion. That money would be first separated to the states and then to individual governmental bodies within the states, including the city of Kalamazoo. In kind of a back of the envelope, in the course of the committee of the whole meeting and a little bit during this meeting, I've done a little further research. And again, don't hold me to these figures, but roughly over the course of 18 years, the city would get approximately $150,000 a year out of this settlement money. Again, don't hold me to that figure. It may be higher, it may be lower, depending on how many communities decide they don't want to participate. I got to believe if there's money out there available, most communities will say yes. So, but again, that could change. And one of the questions that was raised during the committee of the whole was by Commissioner Pradel is, what can this money be used for? It is used for, and it's a defined term in the settlement agreement, opioid remediation. And it would be for the care, treatment, and other programs, including reimbursement for past programs and expenditures designed to address the misuse and abuse of opioid products, treat or mitigate opioid use or related disorders, and mitigate any other alleged effects, including those injured as a result of the opioid epidemic. There is an exhibit that's included in the settlement agreements that is goes over. It is a lengthy document. It is several pages long. It's a list of opioid remediation uses, or what the money can be used for. It runs some 15 pages. It includes such things as paying for, I'm not very good at names of pharmaceuticals, but naloxone, which is the shot that you give to somebody who's suffering from an opioid so as to get their heart started again. So we could be reimbursed for that expense that the city has incurred. It goes for educational programs, it goes for instructional programs or prevention programs, media campaigns along those lines. There is money available for mothers who are pregnant and who are infected by what is called opioid use disorder, for treatment for opioid abuse, supporting people in recovery, including people who are currently in the corrections system. It is to provide information and education to governmental staff and how to deal with individuals that you may come in contact with who are suffering from opioid addiction. So there is and the other thing is this exhibit that runs 15 pages that lists all the things you can spend it on. It's also said this is not an exhaustive list. There may be other reasons that you can spend the money for. However, if you go too far out of the scope of what's permitted, then you've got to jump through a few hoops in order to satisfy the requirements for the spending of that money. So there is a broad ability to use this money going forward in terms of both for past expenses that have been incurred and future expenses to deal with the fallout of the opioid addiction epidemic that's plagues this nation. I hope that answers the questions that you may have. Now, the other thing that, again, I apologize for bringing this to you at the last minute. As I said, I got these forms at 4 o'clock and at 4:45 this afternoon. Fortunately, on the last meeting day that we have of the year, because I have to fill them out and turn them in by January 2nd. And so this is the opportunity for the city. And again, I've got to demonstrate authorization that I'm permitted to do this. So when the minutes, I will be able to demonstrate that if we're ever challenged, that this body authorized me to approve these settlements. And again, it is my recommendation that you do so. Because if we don't get any money, and we would have to, if we wanted to recover anything, we would have to sue the manufacturers and distributors on our own. And that's the beauty of a class action, particularly in this one, in that this affects every city, town, and hamlet across the United States to some degree. And there's going to be a big pot of money that will be split up amongst those impacted entities.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Commissioner Hess.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is Jean Hess. Attorney Robinson, is it just municipalities or cities that will be recipients of this class action, or would the county be involved in some way, shape, or form?
The county, the county could get some money as well as the state.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Attorney Robinson? Seeing none, the recommended action, and right now the action has, recommended action has changed even since you first proposed this. So if you wouldn't mind, Attorney Robinson, could you read the full recommended action again?
You're asking for a motion to authorize the city attorney to execute the National Opioid Distributors and Janssen Settlement Participation Forms and associated documents. And just just to reiterate that the distributors that are involved in this settlement are McKesson, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource Bergen.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Is there a motion to authorize the city attorney to execute these documents.
Moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess. Is there a second?
Support.
That was me. That was Commissioner Decker.
All right. Commissioner Decker supports. Any other discussion? Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah, I think this is unfortunate how last minute this creeps on municipalities. I mean, ideally, in most situations, we would want to have this on the agenda so the public can look into it. So I appreciate you answering many of the questions, City Attorney Robinson, but I did do a little bit of homework in between our meetings, and the Kalamazoo County Health Department actually put out a report on this in February 2019. And so just from February 2015 to 2017, opioid overdose visits increased by 55% just in that 2-year period, from 218 to 342 in Kalamazoo County. And I have to believe that most of those overdoses were probably treated at 2 hospitals, in near the city of Kalamazoo. And then they had another statistic here. They said an additional 1,865 years of life would have been lived had these individuals not passed from opioid addiction in that just that 1-year period. So it's obviously a very pervasive problem nationwide, but it definitely exists here in our community. And I would hate for us to miss out on an opportunity to obtain funds to prevent further deaths being caused in our community. So for that, I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other discussion?
If I don't want to belabor it, but I would buttress the remarks of Commissioner Pradel. Again, this is Clyde Robinson, City Attorney, and I don't want to speak for Chief Coakley, but I am aware, because I read a lot of police reports, of our officers administering naloxone to bring people out of near death or unconsciousness on their way to death. It is not an uncommon occurrence, unfortunately.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Seeing no other discussion, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The motion passes. Next is reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzman, do you have a report?
Yes, Your Honor. First of all, sorry for freezing up. I guess my internet's tired of Zoom too. So I asked DCM Chamberlain to just walk through what it will look like come January 3rd when we come back, or whenever we come back in January for the first meeting. So DCM Chamberlain, would you please just explain what that will be like?
Sure. Thank you very much. This is Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain. And as has been mentioned a couple of times tonight, all of our boards and commissions, including the City Commission, have to go back to in-person meetings starting the 1st of January. So our next meeting with the City Commission is Monday, January 3rd. So that meeting will be held live in the City Commission chambers at City Hall. The committee of the whole meeting will be at 5 o'clock, and the regular meeting will be at 7 o'clock. So just a couple of things. This is because of state law. Cities, municipalities cannot continue on with virtual public meetings beyond December 31st. So it affects not only the City Commission, but it also affects all of our approximately 30 boards and commissions. So they will need to go back to in-person meetings beginning in January also. So as the city manager mentioned, things are going to look a little bit different when folks come back and rejoin us at the City Commission chambers. We have installed new plasma air filters in the ductwork in the chambers and throughout City Hall. We also have a couple portable air filters in the room that we will have there that evening. We'll have some plexiglass up dividing speakers. And then we will also have personal protective equipment available at the door when people come in. And We also want to just let people know that we are recognizing the fact that as we've gone through this, this process, as the mayor mentioned, and thank you all very much for recognizing staff for the last 22 months. We also have seen some increased public engagement through the meeting with the city commission and some of our other boards. And we've heard that some folks would like us to continue with that. So what we're going to do is the commission will meet live, but we will also continue to broadcast the city commission's meetings live onto Public Media Network, Facebook, and YouTube. So if somebody's watching the city commission now on Facebook, they can continue to watch it live on Facebook going into the future. We are making one significant change though on the call-in and for public participation. Obviously, as a live meeting, we'll be having live public participation. Somebody can come up to the podium and they can talk. We're also going to keep though the option for call-in public comments. The change though will be that they will be live as opposed to recorded. We've checked around with most other communities that are doing it, and almost everybody else is doing the live call-in. So what that means, it's a similar format that we've used with some of the town hall meetings, if you remember those, where we will have a toll-free number. And as people are watching it on, say, Facebook, and it gets to public comment time, they can call that toll-free number and they will be put into a queue, and then staff will just play them into the chambers like we would kind of, instead of recorded though, it will be live. And so that's the one change, but again, we will be continuing to broadcast these live on Facebook and YouTube and Public Media Network. How this applies also to our boards and commissions is that they all have to go back live also in person. And I guess City Attorney Robinson will touch on this, I'm sure, because our next item is about the amended rules, but the state does not allow for board members to attend virtually. So the board members will have to attend in person also, except if they're on active military duty. Because our boards are spread out around the city in different meeting rooms, right now the chambers, the city commission chambers is really the room that's set up for live streaming. So what we've told the boards is if they want to do live streaming, to set up time to reserve and hold their meetings in the chambers. We are also going to be working, we're trying, but we're still working out some of the details to try to get streaming into the community room. But what this means overall is that we do have about 30 boards and commissions. They will all go back live starting in January. They will not all be streamed. So some of them will not be streamed. We are trying though to make sure that the boards where we've seen the most interaction, that we get those streamed. And those are the Community Public Safety Review and Appeals Board, CSPRAB, Civil Rights Board, the Foundation for Excellence Board, the Planning Commission, and Shared Prosperity Board. So those boards we're working to get them streaming in January also. What we're encouraging the public to do is if you have a question about a board or commission meeting that's coming up in January, the city's webpage at kalamazooCity.org, the very top tab, you'll find a tab that says meeting notices. So if you go to that tab, that will tell you when the meetings are. It'll tell you upcoming meetings and if it's how it's being streamed, or if it's not being streamed, where that board is meeting. So that tab, it says meeting notices at the top of the city's webpage, has all the most current information about the meetings that are coming up in the next week or so. So we are actively getting ready for us all to meet again on January 3rd. I forgot to mention one thing. We are going to have some spacing in the chambers as far as blocking off some of the seats. So to try to get some social distancing in there. And we will also have the other two conference rooms, the community room and the third floor conference room, available if we do need to do overflow seating in those rooms. So happy to answer any questions.
DCM Chamberlain, are there any expectations relative to wearing masks during meetings in the chamber?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. That's an excellent question. And that's actually part of the rules that Attorney Robinson has here on the next agenda item. But absolutely. What's being proposed in the rules coming up in the next agenda item is that everybody attending the meetings would have to wear a mask. There's a limited exception. And if you're not wearing a mask, you're going to be required to maintain a social distance at least 6 feet away from the rest of participants in the meeting. And that would apply not only to the city commission, but that would apply to all the boards and commission meetings also.
Thank you very, very much for your very complete report on that, DCM Chamberlain, and all the work that you and city staff have done preparing for this transition. Any questions for DCM Chamberlain at this point? Commissioner Pradle.
Yeah, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, just was wondering, I might have missed this, and if you said this, I apologize. Our committee of the whole meetings will be held then in city commission chambers then, correct?
Yes, the committee of the whole would be in the chambers for now. I know traditionally we've held them in the community room, but again, I think to make the transition a little more seamless for the public at large, we're recommending that we do that in the chambers to start off with.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you. Anything else, City Manager Ritzma?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. City Clerk Borling, do you have a report?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is Scott Borling, City Clerk. The City Clerk's report for tonight that's in your agenda packet has two items. The first is a set of petitions. Actually, it's in addition to the pages and the signatures that were submitted and that were on my report 2 weeks ago from residents on Fraternity Village Drive asking for some safety changes. And so I received additional pages and signatures, so that's in your commission packet tonight. The second item is a report from the Local Officers Compensation Commission, the report of determination. The LOCC met on the 14th of December, and this group is charged with determining the salaries for elected officials in the city of Kalamazoo. So that'd be the mayor, vice mayor, and city commissioners. And that report is in the agenda packet. Just to summarize what that report says, the LOCC determined or decided, voted, approved salary increases of approximately 3.5% for all of the elected officials. And those increases will go into effect on January 13th automatically. The only option that commissioners have, if the commission so wants, so desires, you can reject the salary determination, in which case the current salaries would remain in effect. But otherwise, the LOCC's determination will go into effect automatically. Those new salaries will go into effect on January 13th. And just for the record, I'll say that the salaries for the salary for the mayor, the new salary would be $10,900 a year. The new salary for the vice mayor would be $9,200 a year, and the salary for city commissioners would be $8,050 per year. So that is the report of the LOCC. I know we were trying to, the LOCC chair, Creed Stiegel, was going to be here with us. I don't know that he was able to actually make it on, but I'll stop there and see if commissioners have any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Clerk Borling? All right, thank you for your report, Clerk Borling. I appreciate that very much.
All right, thank you.
And I want to thank the members of another group of people that, not unlike the Planning Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals or all the boards that of citizens that work for the betterment of the city of Kalamazoo. This is a board that doesn't have to meet every month. They meet on a every other year basis, right, Clerk Borling? And they're the ones that go through this process. So thank you for their work. We are now down to K, policy items. First item is K1, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a resolution amending the city commission rules regarding committee of the whole meetings and virtual electronic meetings and adopting face mask protocols during public meetings.
Thank you very much, Managerisma. Is there a staff report on this?
I believe Attorney Robinson is going to be talking about this.
All right, Attorney Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. Clyde Robinson, City Attorney. I don't have a whole lot more to add to the excellent summary and overview that Deputy City Manager Chamberlain gave in regard to the new processes. I think he really covered the high points in terms of going forward. What are going to be the rules and expectations? In essence, you are, unless you're on active military service as a board member at any level, you have to be present at the meeting in order to participate and vote. And if in that regard, we've changed some protocols in terms of in response to the ongoing COVID epidemic, in terms of requiring people to separate themselves, wear masks, whatever their vaccination status is. We're permitting the call-in public comment because in order to accommodate what we anticipate to be more participation, the public comment time is reduced to 3 minutes for regular meetings, 2 minutes for the committee of the whole. The other thing that has been added since we last met is because there were some boards that had a 4-minute limitation. This rule basically says going forward, all boards and commissions now will have a 3-minute limitation, notwithstanding anything else. I think basically that was more for the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. On the other hand, that's only for public comment. If you are an individual who is before the Planning Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals or another board and you're petitioning for relief, like you would for a rezoning or for a zoning variance, you'll still be given your 10-minute time period in order to present your case, if you will, for relief. This is only in regard to public comments. I think with that it basically clarifies and summarizes what can we expect going forward.
Thank you very much, Attorney Robinson. Are there questions for Attorney Robinson at this point? Seeing none, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Decker, supported by Commissioner Pradel. Other discussion, Commission? Seeing none, Clerk Borling. Okay, watching for hands moving. Okay, seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Decker.
You are muted, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you. Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Commission. The motion passes, and I appreciate all the work that was done on that in preparation for kicking off 2022. Now is the time for Commissioner comments. Commissioner Juarez.
Me first again? Okay. Well, I thank you guys all, the city, Attorney Roberts, all the directors, the hard work you guys put in to better our city is very appreciative. Sometimes it is a thankless job, and sometimes people don't see the background work that you guys do. And so, I just want to extend that appreciation. Yeah. And, I hope and pray that, that everyone would have a happy holidays and have, and be safe. And so I just wanted to mention that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Hess.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody. So I went to give blood today at the American Red Cross. And they're giving away these t-shirts, share your gifts, or share your gift. And I want to encourage anyone to, if you can, share your gift this holiday season of blood. They have dangerously low levels of in our blood supply. So please consider that. And if you can't, give love, give joy, give peace. And so knowing that giving and receiving are one and the same in this time of giving. Bell Hooks, who we lost last week, said this: the mutual practice of giving and receiving is an everyday ritual when we know true love. So with gratitude to Belle for her beautiful life and her wisdom. I want to thank those people who have given us gifts today. The prayer that began us for the greater good of the beloved city. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to Christina, Rebecca, Anthony, and Nolan, who helped us see the gifts of Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 in the committee of the whole meeting. And to especially to Rebecca and my fellow commissioners here for really digging in and seeking that education that we need for this community to move forward in equity. We have needs in equity and in healing from COVID and gun violence. We have needs for solving the issues of poverty and racism. But as we said in our proclamations, these people, the people that we proclaim today, have been doing this work and doing the work of healing, doing the work of loving, doing the work of giving. So I guess I just wanted to say that the city works because the people work and the people share their gifts. My gratitude to everyone in the city for sharing your gifts for the greater good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Commissioner Pradle.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's probably a weird time to share this, but hopefully former Vice Mayor Griffin doesn't mind me sharing this. But having conversations with Vice Mayor Griffin, it really changed some of my thoughts about elected official compensation. And there's a real trend nationwide to compensate elected officials more, because if you think about it, if you didn't compensate people fairly, what if you're a single parent who's working multiple jobs or only able to work part-time? It's challenging to be an elected official. And if there's not fair compensation to do this work, you run the real possibility that the only people who can afford to do this work are retired people, wealthy business owners, doctors, lawyers. And, so I think it's really easy to take political points and just say, hey, I'm going to reject, this increase on your own basis for some people. But, in a lot of ways, we got to make the decision on what's best for just people in general. And in many ways, what's possible for people who might struggle to do this work financially. I think that, it's easy to have a headline that says City Commission, allows increase in pay, or, to again, try to insinuate that somehow we're sitting here giving ourselves a raise. But this independent body, considers things like cost of living, the state of the economy. They compare other municipalities on what they compensate. And so I really want to be thoughtful about that. And it was a really good conversation I had with Vice Mayor Griffin about this some time ago. And I think it's definitely something for the public to take into consideration and heart as well when we do not act to reject pay increases. The second thing is I wanted to just mention, I had a chance to speak with Sergeant Workema from our community policing unit last week. And he reminded me of how many men and women in uniform are going to be working this holiday. And, it just reminded me that it's not just our public safety officers who are going to be working when a number of us are comfy at home. It's going to be the people who are driving the plows, keeping our streets safe so we can visit our loved ones. It's going to be the people who are out in waist deep in the streets, fixing the water main breaks that happen, so that we all have clean drinking water, in our homes. It's going to be the people who are working tirelessly at our water reclamation plant and testing our water quality to make sure that we have a city that continues to go. And a number of those people are not going to get to enjoy their holiday the same way the number of us are able to, because they care deeply about this community and will be working hard to keep us all safe and healthy over the holiday season. Another thing I wanted to make sure to share, I learned from Director Baker, which I know we all frequently share, that we're always learning new things from Director Baker. But I saw a story that was saying that there was a statewide shortage of snowplow drivers. And so, I know it's always on the minds of individuals about concern about, road safety and whatnot as the roads start getting bad. So I asked him, is the city of Kalamazoo facing a similar shortage of plow drivers? And he said, here at the city of Kalamazoo, all of our plow drivers are full-time employees with full benefits who are fully trained professionals. And that's not true of a lot of plowing jurisdictions, where a number of those people are only hired on a seasonal basis, oftentimes don't have very competitive compensation or benefits. And so I was very relieved to hear that and hear him say that we don't have an anticipated shortage of plow drivers this winter in the city of Kalamazoo, because we're doing it right. So I was very pleased to hear that. And then I just want to make sure to wrap up by saying it's truly a pleasure to serve all of you. Certainly, as we head into the holidays, I wish you all a very peaceful and restful holiday season. And, I say this often, but as we head into a new year, we obviously have no idea what's to come. But not knowing what's to come, I have a great deal of confidence knowing that I'm serving in making these decisions and working together with all of you. So wish all of you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see you in 2022.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just also want to say, it's been an honor to serve with everyone here. I appreciate all the city staff that came and gave us presentations and all the good information that they're doing. And I thank all of the members here within the commission for, asking some of these questions that need to be asked and for bringing some of these things out to the forefront. Because if we are here to really educate the community, we do have to ask these questions. And not only for them, but, I feel for myself coming in as a new commission, not knowing certain things. And this is the way that we're going to be able to get this information and to move things forward. So I just want to say thank you for everything. It's great to serve on the commission with you guys, and I look forward to sit on the dais with you next year.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. To our community, thank you for choosing me to serve in this role. Thank you for the grace, and thank you for giving me the strength to be bold and to speak loudly when I need to. May you all be blessed, safe, healthy, and just enjoy the rest of this ride out of 21. I'm looking forward to some beautiful things happening in 22. So let's get it.
Amen, Commissioner Hoffman. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, when we honored the Family Health Center for their 50th anniversary, it's such a wonderful, wonderful gift to this community. And Director Denise Crawford does such a wonderful job. I wanted to honor tonight Moses Walker, who was the man that extended that Family Health Center and just made it such a wonderful, wonderful gift to our city. So Moses, thank you so much for what you've done. So I just want to wish all my colleagues and all the people in this community joy and peace in this time of blessing.
Thanks so much, Vice Mayor Cooney. I appreciate the focus on hope here for us together. I think that's very, very important. It's very interesting as we're heading into the longest night of the year here and a dark and cold season in what has been a very, very challenging time for all of us. And I think one of the things that adds to the challenge is that it doesn't seem like things are coming to an end here as quickly as we hoped in terms of this pandemic we're dealing with and all the horrible results that have been the result of that to our families, to our community. So in the midst of all this, this is a time for hope, for looking forward. And I do feel that our New Year's resolution here together is that we're going to put everything we have into it. City staff, everyone who's participating in every way in trying to help Kalamazoo be a better place and to leave no one behind. So thank you all. We are not going to be closing right away this evening because we do have a closed session to discuss labor negotiations. So commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to go into closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Decker. Thank you. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes, sorry.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion going to closed session passes. I guess we are going to be coming back out of our closed session into an open session, so we will not be adjourning at this time, correct?
Correct.
All right. And what will be the mechanics here, DCM Chamberlain?
Right. Thank you, sir. We are going to end the live stream. The city commissioners don't need to do anything. Just stay where you are. We will be ending the live stream on Facebook and YouTube. And if there's anybody that is listening in on the call-in line, that will end also. People can rejoin the meeting when it comes back. Unfortunately, we can't give a specific time frame because we don't know specifically when commissioners will come back from the closed session. So people can just continue to monitor the city's Facebook and YouTube page. And if it's not showing it as refreshing, you can just refresh it. A citizen who's watching it can refresh it. And we will come back on live when the city commission comes back. And then also if there's anybody who's calling in, they can continue to call back in. And when we're back live again, they will be rejoined. So at this time, we're going to end the live feed, but we will be restarting the live feed when the commission comes out of closed session.
Thank you, DCM Chamberlain.